We are Friday night here in LA. We're live. It's about 7:15 on the West Coast. Paris is 12 hours ahead, I think. So we don't have every bit of information. The last body count I heard was over 150. When the Charlie Hebdo thing happened in the week after, everybody said, "Je suis Charlie." But not really. They didn't really stick with them like Usher and I were just talking about. I asked her if things would be different. I'm going to ask you this question that people asked after 9/11, because I don't think we still know the answer. Why do they hate us? I've stumped the panel again.
Because we finance the capital flow into Saudi Arabia that then arms the population that has power in Saudi Arabia to oppress the population that does not have power in Saudi Arabia, which then is deprived of basic resources in Saudi Arabia, which is then radicalized inside the Muslim religion, and then lashes out irrationally, violently, murderously against innocent people who did nothing. The United States' lack of internal account. We need to be accountable in our own government and our own relationship with Saudi Arabia.
That's not what terrorists say.
Well,
when you capture
one, or
when they leave a note, you know what they say? Because you're there, because you're in Muslim lands. I have a crazy idea. Why don't we get out of Muslim lands?
That's a big part of it. I think the idea of importing democracy, that concept that sort of emerged in the early 2000s, certainly part of the Bush doctrine at the time, to talk about sort of taking our values and transplanting them elsewhere, has wholly been rejected because now
even by the Republicans.
And that's a lot of the struggle you see within the party today, is that fissure that's growing between big government republicanism, for example, and this idea that Rand Paul and others are talking about, where let's be a little bit more common sense about how we project power.
It's like when you watch Star Trek. Kirk goes to the other planet and he brings democracy. They don't want it. They don't care about it.
We're violating the
follow
Kirk.
Do what Kirk does.
And then he always says, "What is this Earth kiss you talk about?"
We're financing the oppressor, Bill. We are financing the oppressor.
I think you're seeing that a little through America-centric eyes. I mean, that certainly is part of it. I don't know if that's the main thing on their minds, is the financing aspect of it. Yes,
I'm saying it doesn't exist without that relationship.
So there would be no...
In other words, what I'm saying is we politically, the only thing we can control is our relationship and our accountability with our government. And our government chooses to fund and be present.
I'm always amazed at the number of people who like Americans but don't like America.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? When you go and they go,
"That's right.
Oh, we had some Americans. They were very nice." I mean, they all think we're like Donald Trump. Loud, brash, making demands. We're going to do this. We're going to kick ass.
Well, that if they watch the Republican debate on Tuesday night, that's exactly what they saw. The biggest cheers were for Republicans who got up there and said, we have to kick ass militarily. This nonsensical argument, you mentioned it before. And, let's show a little bit of the debate. This is the debate that Ron Paul, he actually, good for Rand Paul. He sounded a little like his father, and that's what we loved about him at the beginning. This is a debate with Marco Rubio.
How is it conservative to add $1 trillion in military expenditures? You cannot be a conservative if you're going to keep promoting new programs that you're not going to pay for.
I know that the world is a safer and better place when America is the strongest military power in the world.
Can you be a conservative and be liberal on military spending? Can you be for unlimited military spending and say, oh, I'm going to make the country safe? No, we need a safe country. But we spend more on our military than the next 10 countries combined?
Yes, what a great thing to say. Yeah. Because all these other Republicans talk about rebuilding the military. It's already built. If we're already 10 times what all the other countries combined are, why do we have to keep adding to it?
That, for me, was probably a seminal moment in this presidential race, simply because it really exposed the fissure between the neocons who want to expand defense spending and engage militarily, and the pure economic, rational thought about where do you get the money from? How do you pay for it? We just went through that. We just spent trillions of dollars that were unaccounted for, that caused a lot of problems and a lot of pain. Are you willing to repeat that? And I think Rand Paul really pressed it, and I think you're going to see more pressing of that over the next few months going into the primary season in February, because that's got to get resolved. And you cannot go forward with this idea that we're going to ramp up all this spending. I mean, Marco's plan is a $2 trillion plan, $1 trillion in defense spending and $1 trillion in a government subsidy program for child care. And so Rand is asking, so where are you going to get $2 trillion from? You're complaining about the $19 trillion debt that we currently have. And that's the rationale.
My seminal moment in the debate, you had Ben Carson calling himself a failed murderer and Trump calling him a liar. I mean, think about it. When did this ever happen? I tried to kill a guy. No, you didn't. When does that ever happen?
This doesn't. That's a good point. That's a great point.
Think about it.
Because you can never be too macho.
You never can be too macho.
You can never be too macho in the Republican Party. They always talk about, I'm going to wipe out ISIS. First of all, it's not possible. Do you know that? To wipe out ISIS? This idiot talk we have to stop. If we actually put boots on the ground, what would ISIS do? They would melt back into the population, just like the last time we were in Iraq. You can't wipe them out. You can't wipe out all your enemies, Michael Corleone.
No, I agree. I mean, I think this, Michael Corleone, but that's part of the problem that President Obama is facing right now in looking at what he's going to do with the group of 50, folks that he's sending into Syria. Again, you've got the problem with ISIS. The country has to come to grips with how we want to engage militarily in the Middle East, and recognize that we have partners. I mean, look at the Kurds. Why aren't we doing more with the partners who want to work with us there?
I think so. This is the place where I actually believe Bernie Sanders has articulated this the best, which is, what about the rest of the world? What about the money in Saudi Arabia? What about the folks in Turkey? Why are the American taxpayers the only government, the only person that's supposed to fund and solve the Middle East?
I've been
Where are the
screaming about
Russians?
this
Where are
for
the Chinese? Where are the Saudis? What is this?
Well, where are all the other Arab countries who pretend to
Iran?
hate ISIS so much?
Precisely.
I tallied up their armies one night. There are over 5 million people under arms. If you look at all these countries, Saudi Arabia and Jordan and Turkey, that could send troops to fight an army of about 25,000 assholes who have 1970 Toyota pickup trucks. That's
and what they've typically
Those
done,
are nice
Bill.
rigs, though. Those are good cars. Very reliable.
But what they've typically done is that they rely on the United States to sort of fill out that card for them.
Exactly.
And that has been the role that we have taken going back a long time now. But this is a different dynamic. This is a different war. This is a different level of engagement, as we see in Paris tonight, as we've seen in Boston, for example.
But why?
It's a homegrown thing.
But bombing them over there is what is causing the Paris thing to happen. That connection needs to be made.
Yes.
We don't have to be bombing them there.
We don't have to be bombing them.
Right.
It doesn't have to be us.
Remember after 9/11, Bush was all about we're not make any distinction between countries that harbor terrorists and terrorists, and it was kick-ass shit. Everybody loved it, because we had to wipe out the safe havens. Right? That was Afghanistan. Okay, all these years after 9/11, there's way more safe havens than there were then.
That we built, that we created, and who's our best ally in Iraq right now? Iran.
Exactly. ISIS is our big enemy is fighting our other big enemy.
Come on.
We don't need to. We just need popcorn.
Yeah.
Just sit back and watch this. This is crazy.